Hello and welcome. My name is Stuart Entwistle. I'm Training Manager for Osmond Ergonomics. In this webinar, I'll be talking about sleep. Good sleep is essential to our mental and physical health, but it is estimated that more than sort of 2/3 of the UK adults get less than the recommended 7 or 9 hours. I'm not an expert on sleep, but it is something that I'm interested in, as I've suffered from poor sleep in the past. I understand how not getting a good night's sleep can affect you. I've been interested, I suppose, in the subject of sleep just to try and help me understand why I was suffering from poor sleep and how I could improve my sleep. So some of this content is from my own experiences, as well as some research I've done on the internet. So during the webinar today, what I shall be covering is I'll give a brief introduction to myself in Osmond Ergonomics. Then we'll look at why sleep is important for us, what is happening whilst we sleep, looking at what good sleep is and what happens if we don't get a good night's sleep, and then go through some tips to get some optimal sleep and relaxation techniques that we could use prior to going to bed. And then I'll summarize what we've gone through, and right at the end, links to some free resources. So the aims of this webinar is to get you to understand why sleep is important and what happens whilst we're sleeping, understand what good sleep looks like, and learn some hints and tips for getting to sleep and improving your sleep. So just a little bit about myself. So I've been working for Osmond Ergonomics now for 22 years. I've always been in a form of training in one way or another. So I was originally brought in to develop and create our installation service, where we provide one-to-one training to users who are receiving equipment from us. But after doing that for a few years, needed a fresh challenge, so became an advanced DSE assessor. And then also in 2013, took on the role of trainer manager for the organization while still carrying out assessments, because I believe that's where I learn my craft. And that's how I understand sort of the changes which are going on within the workplace at the moment to enable me to sort of provide that information to others. So in terms of who we are at Osmond Ergonomics, so we're based near Wimborne, just on the south coast near Bournemouth. And if I could summarize what we do as a business, we provide products and services to improve well-being and productivity within the workplace. And we're quite unique as we tend to focus on the outcome rather than the sale, because we believe that builds better relationships in the long term. If you ever need to speak to any of my colleagues, we're all trained DSE assessors. We've all done further ergonomics training. So we have a wide breadth of knowledge, but we don't profess to be experts in every area, but we do know experts in every area. So if we can be of help, then please do get in touch. So on to the subject matter for today, sleep. So we need to look at why sleep is important. And sleep, it is a complex process that affects our entire body. So sleeping is a basic human need. It's like eating, drinking, or breathing. And like these other needs, sleeping is vital for good health and well-being throughout our lifetime. So when we sleep, it allows the brain and the body to slow down and engage in a process of recovery, promoting better physical and mental health performance the following day and long term. And sleep helps in the following ways. So it creates proteins which target infections and inflammation. Our bodies also produce T cells when we sleep, and that they play a crucial role in our body's immune response to infections. Sleep has also been shown to play a role in improving antibody responses to vaccinations. So before we have a vaccination, if we get a good night's sleep prior and after, then that can improve the antibody response that our body creates. Poor and inadequate sleep, that can cause irritability and stress. It can make it a lot more difficult to cope with even most relatively minor stresses that we come across in our daily lives, and even sort of impact our ability to perceive the world accurately. So our view of the world becomes slightly distorted. And during the deepest phases of sleep, blood flow to the muscles increase. Since blood carries oxygen, nutrients around the body, this helps the muscles to heal while we're sleeping. In many cases, cells are regenerated by this increased blood flow. Hormones are also released during deep sleep. And the hormone released during sleep is important because the hormones help with healing, reducing inflammation, muscle repair, and growth of new tissue. So what happens when we are sleeping? Well, our bodies operate like a clock. So during a 24-hour period, there are thousands of functions being switched on and off throughout the day and night. And it doesn't stop, as we know, or that would be quite a serious problem. But there is a regularity to what happens, and this is what we would call our circadian rhythm. And we've been programmed with this since the beginning of time. And one of the main factors that drives our circadian rhythm is light. So when the light starts to disappear, the onset of darkness comes in, then the body starts to release a sleep hormone, which is melatonin. And this starts to increase as soon as the onset of darkness. It tends to peak in the middle of the night, somewhere between 2 and 4 a.m., and then gradually falls again through the second half of the night as dawn starts to approach. So when we're sleeping, we end up going through a series of patterns or cycles during our sleep. So the first stage, or those cycles, are called non-rapid eye movement, so NREM sleep, which predominantly happens in the first half of the night. And then we have the rapid eye movement, the REM sleep, which typically occurs during the latter stages of the night. So when we sleep, we cycle through a series of sleep stages, from light sleep, which is 1 through to 2, to deep sleep, which is stage 3, and then we end up in that rapid eye movement stage of sleep. Successfully cycling through all of these stages of sleep is good for us, and we do cycle through this during the course of the night. So one thing that I always assumed when I was getting bad sleep was I was getting bad sleep because I wasn't going through all full cycles, and I thought this cycle only occurred once during the course of the night, so it increased sort of I suppose my stress levels. I was thinking about it more, but actually what I've learned is that during the course of the night we cycle through these stages multiple times, and that allows then the body to sort of perform its critical function of restoring our bodies and minds for the following day. So stage 1, that looks like sort of that's that stage where we're sort of just getting ready to go to sleep. So during this short period, which can last sort of several minutes, we end up going into a light sleep. Our heartbeat, our breathing, our eye movement starts to slow down. Our muscles start to relax, and we may occasionally get occasional twitches. And then our brain waves begin to slow from their daytime sort of wakefulness patterns into more of a relaxed pattern. Once the body started entering the stage 1 sleep, then we start moving into stage 2. So this again is still that non-REM sleep, and it is a period of light sleep, and this is before we sort of enter that deeper phase of sleeping. Our heartbeat and breathing slows further. Our muscles relax even further as well. Our body temperature starts to drop, and our eye movements stop. Brainwave activity slows down even further, but we may end up sort of experience brief bursts of electrical activity within the brain during this stage. And we probably spend more of our repeated sleep cycles in stage 2 than any other sleep stage. So once the body's gone into, or the brain has gone into stage 2, then it starts to move into that stage 3, that deeper period of sleep that we experience, but it isn't REM sleep. So when we go into stage 3, this is the sleep that we need to make us feel refreshed in the morning. It occurs in longer periods during the first half of the night, and our heartbeat, our breathing will slow to their lowest levels during our sleep cycle. Our muscles are completely relaxed, and it may be quite difficult to awaken someone or awaken yourself during this period of sleep. And our brain waves sort of slow right down as well. And then once we sort of go into that stage 3, then the next stage we move into is that REM sleep. So this tends to occur about 90 minutes after we have fallen asleep. Our eyes start to move. They move rapidly from side to side behind our closed eyelids. Mixed frequency brain waves become closer to that we would see sort of during wakefulness as well. Our breathing starts to increase, it becomes faster and more irregular. And our heart rate and our blood pressure starts to increase to sort of similar levels that we would experience whilst we're awake. And most of our dreaming tends to occur in REM sleep. Although some of that sleep, that dreaming can also occur in the non-REM sleep as well, but predominantly it will sort of happen in that REM stage of the sleep cycle. Our arms and our leg muscles become temporarily paralyzed, which prevents us from acting out our dreams. And then the majority of REM sleep happens during that second half of the night. And as we age, we tend to spend less of our time in that REM sleep. So each sleep cycle can last for about 120 minutes, a couple of hours, and then we go back to stage one and we carry on that cycle during the course of the night. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I always assumed before looking into this that actually we just go through this cycle once during the course of the night, and the point of which maybe I was waking up and getting that disturbed sleep, I thought was sort of affecting that stage 3 and that REM sleep. And that's why at the time when I was waking up, I felt like I hadn't really had a good night's sleep. Now I understand that we go through this cycle, we repeat the cycle several times during the course of the night. It has now sort of almost rested my mind and isn't so much of a problem in my mind. So now I know that if I wake up sort of during the course of the night, once I've got myself back to sleep, then I will start this cycle again, and I will be able to get into that stage 3 or that REM sleep so that I can feel as though I have had a restful night. Also, during the sleep, our sympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for our fight or flight responses, rest when we sleep. And if we don't get good rest, the activity of that sympathetic nervous system increases, which can lead to increased blood pressure and cause feelings of anxiousness. So when we are tired, in my mind, that's why we can feel slightly more anxious, slightly more on edge, because we haven't given our nervous system a chance to sort of rest whilst we're sleeping. When we are sleeping, the body replenishes neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are our body's chemical messengers. So they're the parts of the body that help to sort of get those messages around the body. So they carry messages from one nerve cell across the space to the next nerve cell, muscle or gland. So if we are unable to replenish those transmitters, then those messages can be affected. And when we fall asleep, our blood flow to the muscles increases. So in the REM sleep, our blood pressure increases, our muscle, the blood flow to the muscles increases, hormones including the human growth hormone are released, and both of that muscle, that increased blood flow, the hormones being released, they both help with muscle repair, with growth, and general maintenance of the body. So we need to make sure that we can try and get as much sleep as we can, good sleep as well, so that we can allow our body to repair itself and to do that general maintenance. So what is good sleep? So we need to make sure that we get the right amount of hours. So and that is key to getting a good sleep pattern, is getting a healthy amount of sleep. So it's recommended that most adults get between 7 and 9 hours of sleep each night. And the older adults over 65 of age will probably get between 7 or 8 hours of sleep. If we go to the other end of the scale, the rapid growth and development of children means that they need additional hours of sleep. So babies may need up to about 17 hours in a 24-hour period, while the range for teenagers could be about 8 to 10 hours. So, and something else that was quite interesting that I was looking into, and part of this is driven by the fact that I've got teenage daughters, and trying to get them up in the morning is very difficult. So I had a look at that circadian rhythm, and just to see whether it changes at all during our lifetime. And looking at some research online, it looks as though when we do move into our teenage years, our circadian rhythm shifts slightly. So it shifts by about a couple of hours. And that's I think the reason why when we're trying to get our teenage children up in the morning, their circadian rhythm is a couple of hours behind. So trying to get them up for school in the morning, they don't want to get up. They want to stay in bed for an extra couple of hours. And again, at the end of the day, when they want to, or when we suggest that they go to sleep, they're complaining they're still wide awake. And that's because that circadian rhythm has shifted. And as we move into adulthood, then the circadian rhythm sort of resets itself back to sort of what we would expect normally. But these guidelines about sleeping hours, can be helpful as a good starting place. But we want to keep in mind that, we're all different. And we all need different amounts of sleep. So generally, I tend to find I work really well if I get 8 or 9 hours of sleep. I have colleagues, I have friends and family who can get that 6 or 7 hours of sleep, and they're perfectly happy. So whether that's down to the quality of sleep that we're getting, or whether it's down to us being individuals, I'm not too sure, but it does change. So, you'll find out sort of what works best for yourself. And quality sleep is continuous. Sleeping straight through the night with minimal disruptions is more restorative than having your night's sleep interrupted frequently or for long periods of time. Disrupted sleep, that interferes with that natural process of cycling through those sleep stages and may keep you from getting a healthy amount of sleep, and that sort of deeper sleep, or that REM sleep. So evidence does suggest that getting continuous sleep serves a critical role in the support of our brain and our body functioning, and that continuous sleep is at least as important as sleep duration. So research studies found that participants who had a greater sleep continuity performed better on cognitive tasks the next day, an effect that was sort of independent of the total amount of sleep. So it's all about that sleep continuity, going through those cycles rather than the amount of sleep you have. So, but as I say, for me at the moment, I find that working, trying to get that sort of 8 to 9 hours works best for me. And we also need to maintain a constant sleep schedule. So that means going to bed and getting up at the same time every day, even including weekends and holidays. So being consistent reinforces your body's sleep-wake cycle. So it makes sure that the body starts to wind down and produces those melatonin hormones, and how we can sort of get the body and the mind sort of prepared for those sleep cycles that we will go through. And what if we don't get good sleep? Well, this can affect how we think, how we react, how we work and learn. So it changes the activities in parts of the brain. If you are sleep deficient, then you may have trouble sort of making decisions, solving problems, controlling your emotions and behavior, and coping with change. Sleep deficiency has also been linked with sort of mental health issues and encouraging us to take sort of more risky behavior. Now, I know that, when my daughters arrived into this world, they were babies, then that sleep sort of deprivation that we all experience as new parents, I've never felt anything like it. And it does affect sort of those, I remember it affecting those cognitive abilities, just trying to think straight, trying to solve those problems, and knowing that actually, in a normal day, I would be able to control this. So I'll be able to solve this or be able to come up with a decision. But actually now I'm feeling indecisive. I've had that almost like a brain fog. There isn't that clarity. So, so it's something, I've definitely experienced over the years. And if we're tired, we're less likely to exercise. And we know that exercise is good for the mind, it's good for the body. So we can end up in that catch-22 where, exercise is really good for managing our mental health and managing our general physical health. But if we are tired, then that's the last thing we generally want to do. And if we don't get good sleep, then those hormones that, tell us when we're full, when our stomach's full, or when we're hungry, they change. So we end up with reduced leptin levels. So they're the hormones that tell you that your stomach is full. And those ghrelin levels, so the ghrelin hormone is the hormone that tells us when we're hungry. So they increase. So then we end up sort of eating more because the body or the stomach is unable to say that we're full. It also keeps telling our brain that we're still hungry. So we end up eating more, which can contribute to weight gain as well. So I think that's probably where that correlation comes in terms of the health effects that poor sleep can sort of cause, and one of those is type 2 diabetes. So I don't think it's a direct link to sort of poor sleep, but I think it's it is something that we have to be aware of, that we're not getting good sleep and we're eating more, and quite often when we do eat more, if we're tired, then it tends to be sort of more unhealthy snacks. The body sort of craves that sugar, so it could be chocolate bars, those sort of things, which aren't the healthiest of foods to sort of snack on. So we can increase that weight gain, and I suppose then we're at further risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Sleep deficiency is also linked to a higher chance of injury. And this isn't us sort of, spraining our wrist or damaging our back or something like this. This is when we're actually carrying out activities, so like driving. We know that we shouldn't drive if we're feeling tired, because our reaction times are greatly reduced or increased, sorry. We may not be able to make those split second decisions. So we know that driving while sleeping, that can increase the risk of accidents. In older adults, sleep deficiency may be linked to a higher chance of falls, resulting in broken bones. Sleep deficiency has also played a role in human mistakes. So similar to the driving, but things where large ships have grounded on land, or maybe plane crashes, just through to that inability to make those quick decisions and having that sort of clear mindset. And we can also suffer from chronic health problems. And some estimate that 90% of people who suffer from insomnia will also have other health conditions linked as well. So that could be something like heart disease, kidney disease. It could be high blood pressure, which then could increase the risk of strokes. I mentioned the type 2 diabetes. So there are chronic health problems that can also be linked in with this. So the problems that we can experience short term whilst, from having a poor sleep cycle. Difficulty in falling asleep. A lot of people can lie there and they can just not get off to sleep. Now, luckily, throughout my lifetime, this is an area that I haven't had any problem with. And, I can get myself off to sleep in a pretty quick time. But my problem tends to be the waking up in the middle of the night, or historically, my problems have been waking up in the middle of the night and not being able to get back to sleep. So we can end up just sort of lying there, tossing and turning. The mind is sort of awake and maybe sort of thinking about something that's going to happen the following day. But that that wave activity in the brain is sort of preventing us from going back to sleep. So that is something that I've worked on personally quite a lot, is those sort of hints and tips I'll cover in a minute, regarding sort of ways in which we can sort of relax the mind and help us to get back to sleep. We can wake up too early and we have difficulty getting back to sleep. And I think some of that is sort of linked to lying awake for long periods of time. When we don't get good sleep, it can affect our mood, our morale. So we could feel down, we could have a low mood, and partly because, we just don't feel rested. And going back to the sympathetic nervous system, if we haven't allowed sort of the nervous system to sort of calm down and relax during our sleep, then again, we could end up increasing those feelings of anxiety as well. Difficulty in concentrating. I mentioned it when my daughters were newborn. That sleep deprivation, it does make it very difficult to concentrate and sort of to focus and have that clear mind. Some people can be more irritable than when they haven't slept well. Luckily, I think for me, and I'm hoping friends, family and colleagues would agree, that I don't tend to get that irritable when I'm tired. With myself, I tend to become a bit more withdrawn. So I don't I prefer just to sort of be in my own head, which is also can be a challenge when it comes to mental health as well. So people can be more irritable. And then the other thing is feeling that you haven't slept when you wake up in the morning. I've certainly had days like that. or mornings like that, where I've woken up in the morning and it feels like I've only had probably about an hour or two sleep, whereas actually I do know that I have slept for the majority of the night. So maybe for myself in those times, maybe I've missed out a couple of those sleep cycles or those stages of that sleep cycle where I've been getting that sort of restorative sort of rest that the body needs. But if we end up sort of having long-term sleep problems, then, you know, we end up sort of just running on our reserve energy. We're just trying to sort of, you know, we tend to find that we're managing that sort of energy levels or how we're feeling rather than focusing what energy we have on the tasks that we have to do during the day. But we will sort of start the day tired on sort of, you know, limited energy. You know, I often sort of describe it as, you know, we wake up with our battery half full and we've got to try and sort of spread that energy that is within our body and mind throughout the whole day. So, you know, by the end of the day, we can feel even more tired than we would do normally. And that's because we've used up that energy level. So, you know, we need to sort of look at how we can manage that. I mentioned that you know, those ghrelin and leptin levels sort of change through tiredness, through that fatigue. So we end up feeling hungrier. We end up snacking more. And as I said, we quite often end up snacking on the wrong food. So that can increase our weight. It can be a struggle, and this links in with that concentration. It can be a struggle sort of completing everyday tasks. So those tasks that you would normally whip through during the course of your day, you know, it just tends to feel harder, more of an uphill slog to sort of get those activities completed, those tasks completed. Relationships can suffer. That could be down to irritability. You know, we are just rubbing each other up the wrong way. So relationships can suffer, especially if you're disturbing your partner or your wife or your husband or something like that during the night. Then that it disrupts their sleep cycle. So then their sleep is disrupted. So you could end up in a sort of a catch-22 where you're disturbing your partner's sleep, and then they end up sort of getting disturbed sleep, which then disturbs you. So that could be something that's happening that we're not aware of because we are sort of, you know, still in that lighter sleep cycle, but we're not getting that deep sleep that we need to restore the mind and the body. And also we may end up finding it difficult to maintain a social life. You know, part of that could be sort of back to those energy levels. We don't have the energy, that sort of motivation to sort of think, actually, I'm going to contact friends or family and, you know, have a chat, find out what their day is, or maybe, you know, arrangements to meet up at the weekend or of an evening or go to, you know, clubs or something, groups that we may do for hobbies. Then we may end up thinking, actually, I'm just too tired, so I won't bother doing that this week or tonight. I'll do it another day. So we can end up sort of becoming quite withdrawn, which again can have an impact on our mental health because we are social beings. We like to be around people. We like to sort of be social. So that can also, over a long term, affect our mental health as well. So just some tips for optimal sleep. One of the first things that I did when my sleep was becoming interrupted was to invest in a decent mattress and decent pillows. And that made a huge difference. Now, I don't know how old my mattress was beforehand, but it's certainly gone past that sort of recommended time at which I should have changed it. So changed the mattress, changed the pillows, and it was amazing how much of a difference that made to my sleep. It instantly overnight improved my sleep to a stage where, you know, it was brilliant. And then also another positive knock-on effect from that was when I woke up in the morning, my back wasn't so sore, my neck wasn't so sore. So, you know, obviously my pillows and my mattress had all come to the end of its useful life. So my posture was being affected whilst I was sleeping. So as well as improving my sleep, it actually improved my physical health as well. We want to make sure that we've got consistent routines when we go to bed and when we wake up. And that's something that I'm very mindful of, because I find that helps to reinforce that sleep cycle for myself. So making sure I go to bed at a regular time. So I give myself a half-hour window where I need to at least start preparing for bed or getting into bed. And then I wake up at the same time. I try and sort of wake up at the same time on the weekends. Or when I'm on a holiday, but I will sort of try and give myself the luxury of maybe having a half hour or an hour lie-in, just to sort of, especially on a Saturday where, to recover from the week. But when it comes to Sunday, I will try and sort of get up at a similar time. And that's just, as I said, to reinforce that sleep cycle that we need to do. Something else I've put into place, mechanisms I've put into place, is to start winding down before bed. Making sure that, I am trying to rest my mind and calm it down from the day's activity, so that when I do get into bed, then I've got that best chance of dropping off. So whether it's reading books, whether it's listening to soothing music, using relaxation techniques, which I will cover sort of in a minute. For me, doing a jigsaw puzzle, I find that very sort of therapeutic. I find it, it links in with that mindfulness. It distracts me. It calms the mind down. And, that's something that I found works really well. We need to avoid stimulants before we go to bed. And that's not just sort of stimulants that we consume, so like alcohol or caffeine. That's looking at technology as well. So going back to our circadian rhythm, and how light is the main driver of our circadian rhythm. When we look at technology, we know that blue light is emitted from our smart devices, from our computers. So it's that blue light that stimulates the mind. So if we're looking at our phones before we go to bed, if we're looking at our tablets before we go to bed, and we don't have that blue light turned off, then what we're effectively doing is we are stimulating the brain. So those melatonin hormones are not produced in enough. It's not produced enough. So we end up sort of the brain activity is sort of quite awake. So having difficulty in getting to sleep can be there. And I think that's probably why I'm able to get to sleep really well, is because I do try and, wind down before I go to bed and try and sort of just calm my mind. But, alcohol is very tempting after a hard day at work to think, well, I'll just have a pint of lager, or maybe I have a glass of wine or a gin and tonic or something along those lines. And, initially that does feel good. It does, take some of those stresses away. But actually, alcohol does disrupt our sleep patterns quite a lot. So although it may feel better in the evening, actually during the course of the night, it will disrupt those sleep patterns, those sleep cycles that we go through. So alcohol, we want to try and avoid that if we're looking to get a good night's sleep. And also caffeine. We know that caffeine stimulates the mind. So we want to try and avoid drinking caffeine after about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, because it can stay in our body, in our system, for quite a long time. So we want to try and avoid caffeine in the afternoon and for the rest of that day as well. We want to make sure that we create a restful environment for where we're going to sleep. So looking at the room temperature, I'm always pretty much throughout the year, I'll have the windows open in the bedroom, so I've got fresh air coming in. It helps to keep the room cool as well. So I do that. I also make sure that, the room is dark. I'm not going to be distracted from light coming in, especially as we're coming into the summer months. Daylight sort of appears a lot earlier. So, if we don't have a dark room, that can wake us up too early, or earlier than we need to. So, I have blackout blinds on the windows, as well as quite thick curtains. So that does really well for sort of keeping that light out. Make sure there's no distractions in the room. So turn our phones off if we have to have them in the room, or better still, not have our phones in the room, keep them downstairs. So we're not going to get distracted by any messages coming through or any emails coming through on our phones. I also, in the early stages when I was having sleep difficulties, I removed pretty much all technology from my room, just in case. So, in my mind, in my subconscious, it was doing something where, you know, I felt that I was in a restful place. There was no one who was going to be able to contact me through my phone. I had no technology there. So it was very sort of analog, you know, analog alarm clock, just a bedside light pretty much. And that was it. So keeping it sort of very free of distractions. You could use scents in the room. So lavender oils, lavender sprays. You know, there are sprays which we can put on our pillows, maybe some lavender oil in the room. So again, make some nice smells that can help us relax, calm down the mind and help us get to sleep. So those are the sort of things that we can do. I am finding through doing assessments, especially for home workers, where people are working at home, but they're working in their bedroom, then sometimes the mind can struggle to differentiate between the two sort of activities. So when we go to bed, the mind is also thinking, actually, this is where I work during the day, so I should be awake, I should be stimulated. So that can also have an impact. So maybe if you are having trouble sleeping and you do work in the bedroom for work, then maybe think about, is there a way in which you can maybe, you know, screen that area off? Maybe pack it away at night, depending on how much equipment you've got. Or maybe is there another space in the house where you can work during the day, which isn't the bedroom, so we can separate those activities completely from our mindset, so that when we do go to bed at night, then that is the place where we end up sleeping. And if we do end up waking in the middle of the night, then try and do something else like reading or listening to some soothing music, and get out of bed and do that. It is very tempting, and I've been guilty of this in the past, where, you know, you wake up in the early hours of the morning, you're tossing and turning and you're trying to get back to sleep because you're tired, but the brain activity just won't let you go back to sleep. So you end up tossing and turning because you're thinking, I need sleep because I've got to go to work the following day. But actually that is kind of counterproductive. The best method really is just to get up and out of bed, go downstairs possibly, and then read or listen to some music, or maybe go back to that jigsaw or something that can sort of calm the mind down. And then, you know, give it a short period of time. For me, probably 20 minutes, half an hour is probably enough. Then I can go back to bed. I've kind of reset the mind, so then I'll drift off again and hopefully get a better night's sleep or better period of sleep than if I was to stay in bed just tossing and turning. So just some relaxation techniques that you can do. There are many out there, many suggestions of different methods we can do. These are just sort of 3 that I tend to do, and for myself, they work really well. So we could use guided meditation. You know, there are many different styles or apps that are available, whether that's Spotify or YouTube, where you can listen to guided meditation, whether that's someone talking to you or whether it's listening to maybe the sound of some rain or just some outside noises just to help sort of calm us down. So that's something that can work really well to sort of help start relaxing. Or maybe if we wake up in the night, then we can go downstairs and just listen to some guided meditation just to help calm that brain down. In terms of those physical sort of techniques that we can do, the 2 on the screen are 2 that I do quite regularly. So breathing techniques. I often sort of use this breathing technique if I'm having difficulty or getting sleep, or I do it as part of my sort of sleep ritual before I do drop off to sleep. So what I will do, you lie on your back, you want to place one hand on your belly, one hand on your chest. And what we want to do is just slowly breathe in through our nose and counting to 4. Then we hold our breath for 4 seconds and then breathe out through the mouth for 4 seconds. And we repeat that cycle. And what you'll feel as the body starts to calm down, you start to focus on the counting and your breathing rather than focusing on maybe whatever's going to be happening tomorrow or whatever's sort of keeping you awake. So and I think it's similar to the counting sheep method, sorry. So we end up focusing the mind on the breathing, on the counting to 4. So it just helps to relax the mind and the brain. Something else, if the breathing doesn't quite work, then another method I try and do for getting myself off to sleep or back to sleep is the progressive muscle relaxation technique. Now, there's a couple of ways in which you can do this. First way is you could, when lying on the bed, just think about your feet, start with your feet, and then we start to sort of move up the body. So when we thinking about the body, we want to sort of breathe in through the nose, the same as those breathing techniques, and hold for 4 seconds. And then whilst we're doing that, we tense our toes up, our feet up. And then when we breathe out after that 4 seconds, we then relax our toes and our feet. Once we've done that, we then start to move up the body. So we then focus on the lower leg and the calf muscles. What we will do is we will again breathe in for 4 seconds through the nose, tensing the calf muscles, hold for 4 seconds, and then breathe out through our mouth for 4 seconds, and then relaxing and releasing that tension in the calf muscles. We can start to work, as we work up through the body, you'll find that relaxation you will relax the muscles. And as we get up through the body, we end up drifting off to sleep. Now, I use a slightly different method for this. What I try and do is when I'm lying in bed, I will concentrate on my toes, and I will just sort of, bring myself into the present. I will ground myself. So I will be feeling for, the warmth of the bed, the softness of the duvet or the bed sheet, those nice feelings. And what I tend to find is after sort of a few seconds of thinking about my toes, I can sort of almost feel a tingling sensation in them. And to me, that feels as though those toes are starting to relax. Then I will focus on that tingling sensation and bring it up through the body. So I can feel it coming up through the feet, into the ankles. I can feel it slowly moving up through my lower legs into the calf muscles and up through into the upper leg, the muscles in the upper leg. And generally, before I've even got to the chest, I've fallen asleep. So that is another way of sort of just trying to relax those muscles and trying to relax that brain. But as I say, there are plenty of other methods that you can look into online to try and sort of help relax the mind and relax the body so we can get a good night's sleep. So just to summarize what we've gone through today on this webinar, we want to prioritize sleep. We don't want to skip it. We want to try and get as much, the recommended hours that we can, because it is important, because it helps the body to sort out what we've seen, experienced, the knowledge we've observed. It helps to sort out all that information so we can recall it whenever we need to. It gets rid of all of that useless information that we've absorbed, so that it helps to sort of organize the brain. It also helps to sort of repair the body as well. So helps with muscle repair, helps with growth in children and teens. So it is important that we get a good night's sleep. We want to make sure where possible to follow a regular sleep pattern. So going to bed at the same time and getting up at the same time, even on weekends and when we're on holiday as well. Try and keep to those same sort of sleep patterns. Make sure that we have a restful environment where we can. So making sure that the room is dark, it is cool. We've got no distractions in those rooms. We want to avoid those stimulants. So not just the stimulants that we consume like alcohol or caffeine, but also those technology stimulants, so our smartphones and our tablets. So try and avoid using those before we go to bed. And we want to make sure that we avoid those things, at least an hour before bed, because that's when we want to start winding down. So, making sure that we're preparing the mind and the body for bed. So whether that's reading, whether that's listening to music, whether it's doing a jigsaw, which I find useful, and then using those relaxation techniques if we're having trouble in sleeping or getting back to sleep. So trying to sort of calm the mind and relax the body. So I had some aims at the start of this webinar. So understand why sleep is important and what happens whilst we sleep. So hopefully I've covered that adequately for everyone listening. Understand what good sleep is. So have an understanding of what good sleep should be. And then some hints and tips for getting to sleep and also improving our sleep. So hopefully I've covered those 3 points adequately for everyone. If you've missed any of our other webinars, then you can access the recordings from the resource section of our website at ergonomics.co.uk. And we do have a lot of resources available, which we're more than happy for people to use. So at osmangroup.co.uk, you can get access to sort of all of our online content. So whether it's our e-commerce website, whether it's PDF resources, looking at our e-bulletin, our blogs, social media, so you can get access to it all from osmangroup.co.uk. We also have a library of top tips videos, so only to 60 to 90 seconds long, looking at simple questions that we generally get asked. So why is a vertical mouse better than a standard mouse? Why do I need a footrest? What height and distance should I have my monitor? So there's a variety of different videos available there for you to have a look at. If you do have any questions about the content of this webinar, then please do drop me an email or give me a call. And again, if you have any questions about any of the other webinars that are on our on-demand page, then please do get in contact, and I'd be happy to have a chat and answer any questions you have. If you would like to explore having this topic delivered as an in-house training session, then again, I'm happy to have an exploratory chat. And again, anything on our on-demand page, if there's anything you think would be interesting for you to sort of have delivered in-house, then please do just contact me or contact my colleagues in the customer service team as well. Their contact details are on the screen. So we'll just see if there's any questions coming from the audience.